Have you contemplated how well you are assessing your teaching groups? Are you conscious of how you are using the information from assessment to further your students' learning? Do you adapt your teaching to meet the demands established by your assessment? How do you feel about assessment in any format? In schools, educators use a wide variety of tools to help them in evaluating, measuring, and documenting the academic readiness, skills acquisition, educational needs of students, students' learning progress, and to also assist in adapting their approaches to meeting these diverse needs. Let's explore some of the assessment tools that teachers use in their classroom and how they can directly impact on students' outcomes. Assessment is a key component of learning. Used expertly, it assists students' learning through robust planning and strategic resourcing of lessons and delivering quality-first teaching that maximizes students' outcomes. When students can see how they are doing in a class, they are able to evaluate their comprehension of learning intentions and allow for necessary actions to be taken as appropriate. Additionally, assessment can assist in motivating students. It allows students to see what areas they have achieved successfully and what areas they need to improve on. With the proper provision of opportunities to act on these developmental areas, students are then able to flourish. Assessment assists teachers in directing the path of learning for different groups of learners and establishes the materials and approaches that would be best suited for students' achievement. Assessments comes in various forms depending on the purpose of the assessment and the period in which the assessment is being administered. Generally, assessments can be categorized into 4 types. There are diagnostic, formative, interim, and summative assessments, all with their relevance in the information they collect and how they are used. Whatever the nature or type of assessment, it is important that assessments are following 4 basic principles. The goal of assessment is to improve learning. Therefore, to be meaningful and useful, all assessments should be fair, flexible, valid, and reliable. Some of the benefits of assessments are improving long-term recall for students, informing instruction or curriculum, providing evidence of learning, and helping to build content mastery and the potential of reducing test anxiety in students. A diagnostic assessment is a form of pre-assessment or entry starting point assessment where teachers evaluate students' strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, and skills of the prerequisite before their instructions. Diagnostic assessment happens at the beginning of the learning program and subsequently when the need arises and is related to the specific skills needed for the learning intentions. Diagnostic assessments are intended to assist teachers with identifying what students know and can do, and enabling them to best support students' learning, building on their strengths and addressing their specific needs. The goal of formative assessment is to monitor students' learning and to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by educators to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. Formative assessment empowers students with identifying their strengths and their areas for development and identifying specific ways in which they can work on making these improvements. In classrooms featuring formative assessments, Teachers make frequent interactive assessments of students' understanding. This increases teachers' likelihood to adapt and adjust their teaching approaches, activities, resources, and differentiation to ensure that students are given the level of cognitive challenge that is suitable to drive their progress. These assessments include assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. An interim assessment is an assessment administered at different intervals during the academic year. It is used to check students' acquisition of concepts and skills and identify gaps in students' understanding after topics or objectives have been taught. Additionally, it can guide further instructional methodologies, determine what intentions need to be retaught, or weaving remedies into upcoming instructions and activities before progressing on to the next sequence of learning. Some ways to implement an interim assessment may be through a chapter test, independent learning, extended projects, the use of rubric activities, or other well-articulated benchmarkers that can measure students' progress overall. Summative assessments are an important part of the assessment process and are incredibly valuable to both students and teachers. Summative assessment are methods of evaluating performances where the focus is on outcomes of learning and students' academic development at a particular period in time. It allows teachers to measure a student's understanding against standardized criteria. Summative assessment assists teachers in determining how well learning intentions were achieved and students' readiness to move on to the next phase of learning. Summative assessment help educators to improve curriculum provision and planning and develop standards-driven instructional pedagogies that improve further outcomes. Summative assessments can be internal standardized assessments or exams, portfolios, or external standardized examinations. Assessment is a fundamental part of the process of documenting and using empirical data regarding students' knowledge, skills, and learning attitudes to refine curriculum, to refine teaching, and to improve students' learning outcomes and academic achievements. It is therefore vital that teachers are aware of the role that the various types of assessment play in their teaching, in curriculum development, and in their pedagogies, as well as students' learning outcomes. Which type of assessment do you use most in your teaching? What changes will you be making to your pedagogical use of assessments?